Hey, thanks for joining me. This is your brother Mick, and today we'll be doing Acts chapter 23. In case you haven't, I hope you'll support us by hitting the subscribe button for our channel, like, and leave us a comment. So, we're looking at a lot of disorder in this country right now, are we not? We're we've got Democrats. They keep the government shut down, right? They turned down at least 13 attempts to reopen or at least fund EBT and government workers. The reason for this roadblock is because the left wants to give benefits to illegal migrants. Let's explain something for just a moment. The problem with funding people who are here illegally is it is theft from people who have actually been putting money into the system. I don't care who they think belongs here or not, but this is not stolen land. You know how they like to chant, "No one's illegal on stolen land." You know, one of those little nursery rhymes they like to chant. This is conquered land, and as a matter of fact, every inch of land on this planet has been conquered at some point or another. Does that mean that other governments or countries don't have a right to be here either? Think about some of the countries that they are more sympathetic to. Do they not have a right? So now, plus people are not coming to the U.S. because it's too hot south of the border, or they're not actually seeking asylum. They're coming here because we've worked hard and been successful in our dealings as a nation, and they want to take some of that. So they want to steal what belongs to Americans, and Democrats want to help them steal it. I know what you're thinking. Why would Democrats help them take from Americans? Aren't Democrats Americans too? Well, many on we'll call it the far left, and have a little bit of mercy on the centrists. The liberal Democrats are pretty much the same as radical communists, and in their own teachings and practices, they are all about toppling governments for the purpose of replacing them with better systems. So the only problem is they've never figured out what a better system is. So that's why communism always fails. Well, it fails everybody, wherever it goes. And again, they want to break this country by saddling it with even more and more debt than they can possibly afford, or than we all can possibly afford. Remember how Joe Biden went around spending money like a trophy wife? Do you remember that? It was nothing for him just to shell out a few $100 billion to this or that. Well, anyway, now we have this mess, and of course, the people who were dependent on government benefits are starting to get riled up, and some of them should be riled up. And I do know hardworking single parents who need that EBT to get them over the hump. Yes, that there are way too many people taking advantage of the system, and they need to be evaluated. But there are people who are doing everything they can, and we all have to just admit that things are getting harder. It's getting harder to stretch that dollar, you know. And some ignorant little girl on Instagram the other day went viral for saying, starting November 1st, we robbing white people. So garbage like that goes viral, but not people sharing Jesus. I'd I'd say find out who she is so that she could lose her job over it, but I have a feeling that she doesn't have that problem. So it wouldn't be so bad if she were the only one who feels this way, but she's not. There are other similar stories going around on social media, and guess what? This too is by design. Um, Either liberals or Satan, and those two are not mutually exclusive. So, yes, a moral collapse of people who depend on government for everything is designed to contribute to the collapse of this country. and then they'll have no more government to take care of them, period. But I guess they cannot see that far ahead. So there's a couple of other events on the radicals calendar. This was reported by the Hodge twins. So on, I believe it's November 5th. Democrats are planning on surrounding the White House with millions of protesters to demand Trump's removal from office. And oh wow, I just thought of a way to make sure that there is a red wave this next election. Okay, no, I'm not going to say that. Okay, but it might be good to have the army there to greet them, and with hundreds of empty vans. Uh, that's how you answer that. Oh, and there's also a massive economic blackout planned for November 25th through 2nd by guess who? Communist Democrats. They're going to try to bust the economy by not spending any money during Black Friday and the following shopping days. So the people who were losing their minds because they aren't receiving money from the government are going to protest by refusing to spend money that they don't have. Wait, what? What are they actually even protesting with this? The shutdown? Is it a random Trump protest? Are they protesting democracy? do they even know what they're protesting at this point? I don't know. Anyway, you can clearly see that one group is causing all the disruption and dysfunction. The Democrat Party has betrayed the people of this country, and we need to show them how we feel at the polls. And then we need to take measures to make sure that this satanic ideology is buried and never again sees the light of day in this country. And much like ourselves, the Apostle Paul found himself surrounded by some rather dishonest radicals, if you will, in Acts chapter 23. Okay, 23 verse 1. So Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." At this, the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall." I want to say that to some people. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck. Okay, so Ananias, not to be confused with Annas from the Gospels, was a particularly corrupt high priest. So much so that his own people decided to kill him during the revolt against Rome in 66 AD. I suppose he was stricken in a sense. And that's not biblical. That's another historical account. So I'm thinking Josephus. Could be mistaken. Okay, so those who were standing near Paul said, "How dare you insult God's high priest?" Paul replied, "Brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest. For it is written, do not speak evil about the ruler of your people." Okay, so Paul felt he was wrong for lashing out verbally because he respected the office, even understanding that the holder of the office was corrupt. And I get that. I get that. And it is easy to lash out. You know, I'd probably need to pray and ask God forgiveness over that a few times, you know, because I'm sure it was one of those things that just keeps rising back up. Okay, well, why didn't Paul, why didn't he recognize that Ananias was the high priest? Well, Paul had been gone for some time, and we know that the office of high priest wasn't a lifetime appointment. So he probably wasn't high priest when Paul left. Also, it was an informal gathering So he might not have been in his priestly garb, but most of all, his ordering of a man to strike Paul wasn't conducive to the behavior of a high priest. It's also been suggested that Paul may have been sarcastic here, knowing Ananias to be a corrupt man, and was sort of backhandedly saying that he didn't realize that such a man could be high priest. I don't personally agree with that theory, but it is amusing. Then Paul, knowing that some of them were Sadducees and others Pharisees, called out in the Sanhedrin, "My brothers, I am a Pharisee, descended from Pharisees. I stand on trial because of the hope of the resurrection of the dead." When he said this, a dispute broke out between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. The Sadducees say that there is no resurrection and that there are neither angels nor spirits, but the Pharisees believe all these things. There was a great uproar, and some of the teachers of the law who were Pharisees stood up and argued vigorously. "We find nothing wrong with this man." They said, "What if a spirit or an angel had spoken to him?" So Paul, realizing that he wouldn't be treated fairly by the Sanhedrin, decided to throw them into chaos by bringing up the resurrection. Christ did the same thing to throw the group into infighting. As many of you know, the Sadducees, as well as I can figure out, didn't seem to be religious at all. They didn't believe in much of anything. It appears, that I think they may have studied only the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, but after that, they didn't seem to think God had any future plans for us. Just the books of Moses. Verse 10, the dispute became so... What am I doing? Where am I? Oh, I'm wrong. Okay. Sorry. The dispute became so violent that the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them. He ordered the troops to go down to take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. Okay, so this religious dispute became so violent. Can you imagine a fight breaking out at a Bible study like this? You're there to discuss a holy God one minute, and the next thing you're throwing punches. Supposedly this did happen at the Council of Nicaea. I believe it was between St. Nicholas, a.k.a. Santa Claus, and Arius the heretic. Verse 11, the following night the Lord stood near Paul and said, "Take courage, as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome." The next morning some Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. Okay, so these guys who bound themselves with an oath, and I've thought a lot about them over the years, this group of guys, we know that they did not get Paul. They didn't kill him. So did they starve themselves to death, or did they violate the oath? I guess it really takes being able to put yourself back in that first century Jewish mindset. They went before the priests and everything, making sure everyone knew about this oath, and then they were unable to fulfill it. So I don't think there's anything else about that in the histories or anything. It'd be interesting to know. Okay, 13. More than 40 men were involved in this plot. They went to the chief priests and the elders and said, "We have taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul. Now then, you and the Sanhedrin petition the commander to bring him before you on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about the case. We are ready to kill him before he gets here." They should have, got everything in order and then took the oath. That would have been the smarter thing to do. Verse 16. But when the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, he went into the barracks and told Paul. Okay. Remember that Paul is in protective custody, and not actually imprisoned at this time. Um, yeah. Then Paul called one of the centurions and said, "Take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him." So he took him to the commander, and the centurion said, "Paul, the prisoner, sent me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you." The commander took the young man by the hand, drew him aside, and asked, "What is it you want to tell me?" He said, "Some Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about him. Don't give in to them because more than 40 of them are waiting in ambush for him. They have taken an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, waiting for your consent to their request." The commander dismissed the young man with this warning: "Don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me." Then he called two of his centurions and ordered them get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at 9 tonight. Um, it's interesting to see that Paul, while being persecuted by his own people, is being protected by pagan Romans. God truly does work in mysterious ways. So, provide horses for Paul so that he may be taken safely to Governor Felix. Now, Lysias took this threat to Paul very seriously. And remember, he had discovered Paul was a Roman citizen. He tried to paint Paul in a positive light before the governor. He wrote a letter as follows: "Claudius Lysias, to His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by Jews and they were about to kill him, but I came with my troops and rescued him, for I had learned that he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with their questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot, my goodness, to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him." So the soldiers, carrying out their orders, took Paul with them during the night and brought him as far as what is that word? Antipatris. The next day they let the cavalry go on with him while they returned to the barracks. All right. Um, the horsemen took over because there would be a lot less chance of being ambushed as they were going through Samaria, which was a largely Gentile population at this point. 33. Yeah, 33. When the cavalry arrived at Caesarea, they delivered the letter to governor and handed Paul over to him. The governor read the letter and asked what province he was from. Learning that he was from Cilicia, I can't read, guys. Cilicia, learning that he was from Cilicia. So, asking which province Paul was from, Felix was making sure that he had the authority to hear Paul's case, because I believe the land was cut under, was it 3 or was it 4 leaders? I don't quite recall. Because you've heard of Herod the Tetrarch, right? That means that he's one of either the 4 or 3 leaders. I can't think right now. He said, "I will hear your case when your accusers get here." Then he ordered that Paul be kept under guard in Herod's palace. Okay, so Felix resides in Herod's praetorium, meaning that it was a palace, which is in the Caesarea Philippi. So it was named Caesarea by Herod to honor Caesar. And that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us. And we're going to end this in a prayer. Thank you, my God. Thank you for having your hands on us, Lord. And thank you for just leading us in your study. And we just come to you and ask for your guidance in all things. In Jesus' name, amen.